There's a painful truth the ancient Stoics understood that modern society often ignores. Not every relationship deserves to remain in one's life. Not every bond is worth preserving, and sometimes the most courageous act of self-respect is to walk away, even from those who share blood or history. The Stoics weren't cold or unfeeling. They simply recognized that toxic relationships drain the spirit, corrupt judgment, and prevent growth. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca all wrote extensively about the company one keeps and how it shapes character, destiny, and peace of mind. Today, 8 warning signs will be revealed. 8 red flags that the Stoics would recognize as clear indicators that it's time to create distance, establish boundaries, or completely sever ties. These aren't easy truths, but they are necessary ones. Some relationships aren't meant to last forever, and recognizing when to let go is a mark of wisdom, not weakness. So settle in, because what follows might challenge deeply held beliefs about loyalty, family, and friendship. But by the end, there will be clarity on relationships that serve growth versus those that stifle it. Let's begin. The first sign the Stoics would point to is energy depletion without balance. Every interaction leaves one feeling exhausted, depleted, or emotionally drained. Meanwhile, the other person takes and takes, never offering support, encouragement, or genuine care in return. Seneca wrote extensively about the value of one's time and energy. He argued that life is long if one knows how to use it, but most wasted on people and pursuits that offer no return. When someone consistently extracts emotional labor, attention, and support without ever reciprocating, they're not participating in a relationship, they're exploiting one. This isn't about keeping score or demanding perfect equality in every interaction. Relationships naturally ebb and flow. Sometimes one person needs more support, but there's a difference between temporary imbalance and permanent extraction. The Stoic test is simple. Does this relationship add to life force or subtract from it? After spending time with this person, is there energy to pursue goals, serve others, and improve oneself? Or is there only exhaustion, resentment, and the feeling of being hollowed out? Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily to evaluate his associations. He knew that some people are like vampires, feeding on the vitality of others. The emperor understood that preserving one's energy for meaningful work and worthy relationships wasn't selfish. It was essential. When someone consistently drains without giving, when every conversation becomes about their problems, their drama, their needs, while showing zero interest in anyone else's well-being, that's not a relationship. That's exploitation, wearing the mask of friendship or family. The Stoics would say, protect the inner fortress. Don't allow energy thieves to breach the walls. The second warning sign is subtle but devastating. They undermine growth, discourage ambition, and celebrate failures more than successes. When goals are shared, they respond with skepticism, discouragement, or backhanded comments. When progress is made, they minimize it. When setbacks occur, there's a strange satisfaction in their response. Epictetus taught that one becomes like those surrounding them. Show me your friends, he said, and I'll show you your future. The people in one's inner circle either elevate or diminish. There's no neutral ground. This type of person often disguises their sabotage as realism or just looking out for you. They'll say things like, "Are you sure you can handle that? Remember what happened last time you tried something new? Maybe you should just be grateful for what you have. That sounds risky. Maybe you should play it safe." But beneath the concern is fear. Fear of being left behind. Fear that someone else's growth highlights their stagnation. Fear that success will change the relationship dynamic. The Stoics understood that growth requires an environment that nurtures it. A tree cannot flourish in toxic soil. A mind cannot expand when surrounded by voices that insist on limitation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." But he also knew that some impediments are people who consistently stand in the way, blocking paths rather than helping clear them. When someone repeatedly discourages dreams, minimizes achievements, or shows more comfort with failure than success, they've revealed something crucial. They prefer the person small, safe, and non-threatening. That's not love, that's control. True relationships celebrate growth. They cheer for victories. They offer genuine support during challenges. They want to see the highest version emerge, even if it means the relationship must evolve or end. The third sign is perhaps one of the clearest. They never take accountability for their actions. Mistakes are always someone else's fault. Apologies are non-existent or hollow. When confronted with harmful behavior, they deflect, blame, gaslight, or play the victim. The Stoics placed enormous emphasis on personal responsibility. Epictetus built his entire philosophy around the dichotomy of control, what's within our power and what isn't. But he was equally clear that those who refuse to acknowledge their own power, their own choices, their own mistakes, are not on the path to wisdom. This person will hurt others and then make themselves the victim of the situation. They'll say things were misunderstood, taken out of context, or blown out of proportion. They'll claim everyone is too sensitive, too dramatic, or trying to make them look bad. Seneca wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a person perfected without trials." But he also understood that some people refuse all polishing. They see accountability as an attack rather than an opportunity for growth. When someone consistently refuses to acknowledge harm, apologize genuinely, or change problematic behavior, they're showing something fundamental about their character. They value their ego more than relationships. They'd rather be right than be in right relationship with others. The Stoic approach is clear. One can only control one's own responses and actions, but when repeatedly dealing with someone who refuses all accountability, the wise response is distance. Not out of revenge or anger, but out of self-preservation. Marcus Aurelius dealt with countless people in Rome who refused accountability. As emperor, he couldn't always cut ties, but he did limit their access to him, their influence over him, and their ability to disturb his peace. He recognized that some people will never change because they don't believe they need to. Relationships require mutual accountability. Without it, there's no trust. Without trust, there's no real relationship, only a performance. The fourth warning sign is boundary violation. Clear boundaries are set, communicated respectfully, and then immediately ignored, dismissed, or trampled. This pattern repeats endlessly because the person fundamentally doesn't respect autonomy, limits, or the word no. The Stoics were masters of boundaries. Their entire philosophy centers on maintaining the inner citadel, protecting one's mind and will from external corruption. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But what happens when outside events include people who constantly invade that space? Boundary violators operate from a belief that their needs, wants, and desires supersede everyone else's. When told no, they hear, "Convince me." When asked for space, they intensify contact. When limits are established, they test them constantly, looking for weaknesses. This shows up in countless ways. Showing up unannounced after being asked to call first, sharing private information after being asked not to, making decisions that aren't theirs to make, giving unsolicited advice repeatedly, or continuing topics of conversation that have been marked off limits. Epictetus taught his students to protect their inner freedom above all else. He said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." But he also knew that boundaries are the walls that protect that freedom. The Stoic response to boundary violation is firm and clear. Restate the boundary once, then enforce consequences. Not punishments, but natural consequences. If someone can't respect limits, they lose access. If they can't honor boundaries, they forfeit proximity. This becomes especially painful with family members who believe blood relations grant them unlimited access, but the Stoics would reject this premise entirely. Respect isn't determined by genetics. Trust isn't inherited. Access must be earned and maintained through honorable behavior. When someone repeatedly violates boundaries after they've been clearly communicated, they're sending a message. My wants matter more than your needs. Your comfort is less important than my convenience. That's not love. That's disrespect disguised as familiarity. The fifth sign is one the Stoics considered absolutely foundational: chronic dishonesty. This person lies, manipulates truth, withholds information, tells different stories to different people, and creates confusion about what's actually real. Truth was sacred to the Stoics. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Seneca declared, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay. The greatest remedy for anxiety is truth." They understood that dishonesty doesn't just damage relationships, it damages the soul of the liar and everyone around them. Chronic dishonesty creates what modern psychology calls gaslighting, though the Stoics would have simply called it corruption of reality. When someone consistently lies, several things happen. First, trust becomes impossible. Every statement must be verified. Every story must be questioned. The mental energy required to navigate the relationship becomes exhausting. Second, reality itself becomes unclear. Which version is true? What actually happened? Did that conversation occur the way it's remembered, or the way they claim it did? This erosion of shared reality is deeply destabilizing. Third, the liar forces everyone around them to become detectives, constantly seeking truth in a fog of deception. This is an unbearable way to exist in relationship. Epictetus was blunt about dishonest people. If someone is able to convince you of what is false, it is because you have a weakness in your reasoning. He taught his students to trust their perception of truth and to distance themselves from those who consistently distort it. The Stoic test for dishonesty is simple. Does this person's word align with their actions? Do they tell the same story to everyone? When caught in inconsistencies, do they come clean or create more lies? Some people lie occasionally out of fear or weakness. That's human. But chronic dishonesty reveals something deeper, a fundamental disrespect for others and for truth itself. When someone shows a pattern of lying, manipulation, and reality distortion, they're demonstrating that the relationship is built on sand. The Stoics would say, one cannot build wisdom on a foundation of lies. One cannot cultivate virtue while entertaining dishonesty. The path forward is clear: distance from those who corrupt truth. The sixth warning sign is perpetual chaos. This person lives in constant crisis. There's always the emergency, always drama, always some catastrophe that demands immediate attention and emotional energy, and somehow they're always at the center of it. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about maintaining inner tranquility despite external chaos. You have power over your mind, not outside events, he reminded himself. But he also recognized that some people are chaos generators, creating turbulence wherever they go. The Stoics distinguished between natural chaos, events beyond control, and manufactured chaos, drama created through poor choices, boundary violations, and attention-seeking behavior. Natural chaos requires courage and wisdom. Manufactured chaos requires distance. This type of person thrives on crisis. In fact, when life becomes peaceful, they often create problems, picking fights, stirring up conflict, making impulsive decisions that generate emergencies, or catastrophizing minor issues into major disasters. Why? Because drama provides several things: attention, control over others, an excuse for poor behavior, and a way to avoid real growth. If there's always a crisis, there's never time for accountability, reflection, or change. Seneca wrote about the importance of peace. The greatest wealth is a poverty of desires. But he also understood that some people have an insatiable desire for chaos. They're uncomfortable with calm because stillness forces them to confront themselves. Being close to a chaos generator means living in perpetual emergency mode. It means never knowing when the next crisis will erupt. It means sacrificing personal peace to manage someone else's manufactured disasters. The Stoic approach is clear. One's peace of mind is sacred. It must be protected fiercely, while compassion for others' genuine struggles is virtuous. Becoming entangled in someone's chronic drama is not wisdom. It's enabling. Marcus Aurelius dealt with constant external chaos as emperor, but he was ruthlessly protective of his inner peace. He would spend time with those who lived with integrity and calm, and limited exposure to those who brought only turbulence. When someone brings constant chaos, when peace is impossible in their presence, when drama follows them like a shadow, that's not bad luck. That's a pattern, and patterns reveal character. The seventh sign is perhaps the most painful to recognize. They take pleasure in suffering. When mistakes are made, they gloat. When failures occur, there's a gleam in their eye. When pain is experienced, they offer sympathy that barely conceals satisfaction. This is what the Germans call Schadenfreude, the joy in another's misfortune. The Stoics would have called it a corruption of the soul. Epictetus taught, "If you wish to be loved, love." Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." True relationships are built on genuine care for each other's well-being. When someone succeeds, there's celebration. When someone suffers, there's compassion. But some people have inverted this natural order. They might disguise it with false concern. "Oh, that's terrible. I knew that would happen, but I didn't want to say I told you so. I'm so sorry you're going through this. Maybe now you'll listen to my advice." That's really hard. I can't imagine making such a poor decision. The pleasure isn't always obvious. It might appear as smug satisfaction, as thinly veiled superiority, or as an eagerness to share the bad news with others. But it's there, unmistakable once recognized. Seneca wrote extensively about the proper response to others' misfortune. Compassion, assistance if possible, and the recognition that there but for fortune go I. He understood that taking pleasure in others' pain reveals a deep sickness of spirit. The Stoics believed in interconnectedness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What injures the hive injures the bee." He understood that rejoicing in others' pain ultimately corrupts one's own character and separates one from the common good. When someone consistently shows more excitement about failures than successes, more satisfaction in pain than joy in happiness, they've revealed their true nature. They don't want what's best. They want what confirms their superiority or validates their warnings. This is especially toxic because it means there's no genuine support. Victories must be hidden or minimized. Struggles can't be shared because they'll be weaponized. Vulnerability becomes dangerous because it provides ammunition. The Stoic response is unambiguous. Such people must be removed from the inner circle, not with hatred or revenge, but with clear-eyed recognition that they do not wish anyone well. The eighth and final sign might be the most important: intuition. Deep in the gut, in that place where wisdom speaks before logic catches up, there's a persistent feeling that something is wrong. This relationship doesn't feel safe. This person isn't trustworthy. Something is off, even if it can't quite be named. The Stoics deeply respected intuition, though they called it different things. Wisdom, the inner demon, the voice of reason. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if thou wilt ever dig." Modern society often dismisses intuition, especially when it contradicts what should be true. Their family, so you should trust them. They've been a friend for years, so you should give them another chance. They said they've changed, so you should believe them. But intuition is the body's sophisticated warning system, processing thousands of micro-signals that conscious mind hasn't yet analyzed. When something feels wrong, it usually is wrong. When someone feels unsafe, they usually aren't safe. When a relationship feels toxic, it usually is toxic. Epictetus taught his students to trust their internal guidance, make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens. The inner knowing is within one's power. The wisdom to listen to it is a choice. This intuitive warning often appears as physical sensations, tightness in the chest before seeing this person, exhaustion after interactions, anxiety about their calls, dread about upcoming visits, relief when plans are cancelled. The body knows before the mind accepts. Seneca wrote, "Consult your friend on all things, especially on those which respect yourself. His counsel may then be useful where your own self-love might impair your judgment." But he also knew that ultimately one must trust one's own judgment, especially when that judgment screams danger. Ignoring intuition about relationships often leads to years of unnecessary pain. Trusting it might mean difficult conversations, painful separations, or facing guilt and pushback from others. But the Stoics understood that short-term discomfort is preferable to long-term spiritual erosion. Marcus Aurelius constantly checked his gut feelings about people in his court. Some he trusted deeply, others he kept at arm's length despite their titles or connections. He knew that preserving his peace and his empire required listening to that inner voice. When intuition persistently warns about someone, when that quiet knowing says, "This isn't right," when the body tenses and the spirit recoils, that's not paranoia or unfounded judgment. That's wisdom trying to protect what matters most. So there they are, 8 signs that the ancient Stoics would recognize immediately as warnings that a relationship has become toxic, dangerous, or simply incompatible with living a virtuous, peaceful life. 1. They drain energy without reciprocity. 2. They undermine growth and success. 3. They refuse accountability and never apologize. 4. They violate boundaries repeatedly. 5. They engage in chronic dishonesty. 6. They bring chaos and drama constantly. 7. They show joy in pain. 8. Intuition screams, something is wrong. Now here's the truth. The Stoics understood that modern culture often resists. Cutting ties isn't failure. It's not cruelty. It's not giving up. Sometimes it's the most courageous, loving, and wise decision possible. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." One reaction to toxic relationships is to continue suffering, hoping they'll change. Another reaction is to recognize what is within control, the choice of who gets access to life, and what isn't, another person's character or choices. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Part of being good is protecting one's peace, energy, and purpose from those who would consume or corrupt it." This doesn't mean abandoning people during genuine hardship. It doesn't mean cutting off everyone who makes mistakes. The Stoics were deeply committed to the common good and to helping others. But they also knew the difference between supporting someone's growth and enabling their dysfunction, between compassion and martyrdom, between loyalty and self-destruction. Seneca put it perfectly. Associate with people who are likely to improve you. Welcome those whom you are capable of improving. The process is a mutual one. People learn as they teach. When a relationship fails these criteria, when it only diminishes rather than develops, when it extracts rather than exchanges, the Stoic path is clear. So evaluate relationships honestly. Look for these 8 signs. Trust intuition, honor boundaries, protect peace. And remember, choosing to walk away from what harms is not weakness. it's wisdom. The Stoics knew that life is too short to waste it on relationships that slowly poison the soul. Every moment spent managing toxic people is a moment stolen from purpose, growth, and genuine connection. The choice is always available. Continue in dysfunction out of guilt, obligation, or fear of judgment, or step into freedom, peace, and relationships that actually honor who one is and who one is becoming. Marcus Aurelius faced this choice countless times in Rome. So did Epictetus with the people in his school. So did Seneca in his final years. They chose wisdom over comfort, peace over approval, truth over pretense. The same choice is available today. If this resonated, if these signs revealed something that needed to be seen, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Leave thoughts in the comments about which sign hit hardest. And remember, the Stoics have walked this path before. Their wisdom remains, lighting the way toward relationships that truly serve the highest good. Until next time, protect the inner fortress, choose relationships wisely, and never apologize for honoring peace. Stay strong, stay wise, stay free.